Is this a good policy? First of all, you trained our own troops on these tanks. How do they work? How are they crewed? Just speak to us in layman's terms about how these tanks work.
Okay, I mean, I didn't train them on my own. There was I was part of a team that trained them to go and do their various operations. So basically there's this. When someone joins the army and decides that they want to be in a tank regiment, they go first of all to something called basic training or phase 1 training, which takes about 14 to 20 weeks. That teaches them how to march up and down, walk in a straight line, tie their bootlaces and all that sort of stuff. Basic soldiering. Every single person does that, okay, when they join the army. They then go to special to arm training, which is called phase 2 training, and in the case of the Royal Tank Regiment and other armoured corps regiments, they go to Bovington Camp.
Yes.
And it is there where they do their training. Now, basically, what should happen, doesn't always happen, but what should happen is that someone starts life as a tank crewman as a driver.
Yes.
Okay, so they are first and foremost trained as a driver. A course of about 7 weeks. They then move on to become the gunner, another 7 weeks, the loader radio operator, another perhaps 5 to 7 weeks, and then they will become a commander. The commander's course is again about 7 weeks.
This makes sense because they're
Indeed.
trying out every role in the tank.
Absolutely.
However, Major Allum, you keep on saying 7 weeks, 7 weeks, 7 weeks. It's going to take months to train the Ukrainians on these tanks.
Yeah, so what I think is going to happen with Ukraine, and I have no way of knowing if this is true, but I would assume, is that they're going to take their soldiers that are already tank crewmen, albeit on a pretty basic tank. Now, a Challenger 2 is a very capable machine.
Yes.
It is complex and it's very, very capable indeed. It's also extremely reliable. But in order to keep it moving and working, the crew have to maintain it all of the time. And that's the beauty of doing all of those crew roles.
But forgive my ignorance, are we sending out troops to help train them on these tanks or just handing these tanks over?
Right, I would expect, and again, I don't know, but I would expect that if we intend to send 12 tanks to Ukraine, which is an incredibly small number, by the way.
Yeah. Does that touch the sides? I mean, I heard somebody on the news in the week saying we probably need 300.
Well, I think what the Ukrainians need is a lot of tanks. What they don't need is a lot of different sorts of tanks.
Yeah.
That creates problems all of its own. So logistic problems and supply and repair and maintenance of the vehicles becomes much more difficult if you've got lots of different types. Now, I'm clearly not a politician, but my view is that what they're trying to do is encourage the Germans to use their Leopard 2 tanks.
Yes.
Leopard 2 is it's equally, or it is quite a lethal machine, but it is not as complex as the Challenger 2, nor as capable, frankly.
So should we be sending better tanks, or do we not have any?
We don't have any better tanks. Challenger 2 is probably the best tank.
But I hear this a lot from military types. I mean, our own capability, it's been eroded, hasn't it? Are you concerned as a military man that we don't have our own defences? I think we should be sending tanks to Ukraine, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But often I speak to people in an interview setting who are from the military and they don't seem particularly confident in what we've got, our own hardware, so to speak.
Any military man will tell you we haven't got enough and we need more. The beauty of the British Army is that we'll do whatever they tell us to do over in that house over there. So if they tell us to take 12 tanks to Ukraine, we will take 12 tanks to Ukraine and train the people to use them. I would expect that those crews are already in the UK. If they're not, they will be shortly, being trained down in Bovington. I don't know that for sure, but that's probably what is happening now.
But the point is, it's a great gesture, this, but it's going to take too long for it to make an effective difference in the short term.
Well, they're not going to turn up tomorrow morning and into a fight. And, 12 tanks is an incredibly small number of vehicles to get involved in a tank battle.
So be honest, Major, is this pointless?
I think it's a gesture. I think it's a gesture that might be worth making if we are to get the Germans and others to give Leopard, then that's a good idea.
OK.